I had always been the quiet one at Sterling Financial Partners. For 8 years, I worked tirelessly behind the scenes, crafting brilliant investment strategies that my boss, Vincent, presented as his own. Each promotion, each industry award, each hefty bonus check he received was built on my unacknowledged work. "Just be patient," Vincent would tell me. "Your time will come. We are a team after all." But I was not on the executive floor. I was not invited to the leadership retreats. My name never appeared on the reports that made millions for their clients. And my salary remained firmly fixed at a fraction of what Vincent earned. Still, I stayed loyal, hoping that merit would eventually be recognized. Until the day I overheard Vincent in the conference room with the board of directors. I had stopped by after hours to pick up some financial models I had been working on. The meeting was running late, and the door was slightly ajar. "Vincent, this new strategy for the Westlake portfolio is absolutely brilliant," said Caroline Reeves, the chairwoman. "The risk mitigation while maintaining those returns, it's revolutionary for the firm." I froze. The Westlake portfolio was my creation entirely. 3 months of sleepless nights and innovative approaches that even I had been proud of. "Thank you, Caroline." Vincent's voice was smooth as silk. "It came to me during that leadership retreat in Aspen. Sometimes you just need to step away from the everyday noise to see the bigger picture." I felt my heart rate quicken as rage bubbled up inside me. "We need to discuss your compensation package," another board member said. "Work like this deserves proper recognition." Vincent chuckled modestly. "Well, I would not object to that conversation." I slipped away before anyone could see me, my mind racing. 8 years. 8 years of being the ghostwriter of my own career. 8 years of watching Vincent build his reputation on my intellect. That night, I could not sleep. I paced my modest apartment, anger giving way to cold calculation. I had been naive, but I was not without resources. I was not without evidence. And most importantly, I was not without a plan. The next morning, I arrived at the office early as usual. But this time with new purpose. Vincent was not due back from the board meeting celebration until after lunch. I had approximately 4 hours. First, I accessed the shared drive where all my work was stored. For years, I had diligently documented every project, every model, every strategy one had created, always attributed to the team, or directly to Vincent in final presentations. But my digital fingerprints were everywhere if someone knew where to look. I began creating copies of everything, along with the email trails that showed the evolution of projects, from my initial concepts to Vincent's minimal edits before presentation. I was careful not to violate any confidentiality agreements regarding client information. This was about authorship, not client data. Next, I retrieved my personal notebooks. Old-fashioned as it might seem in the digital age, I had always kept handwritten notes of my ideas and calculations before formalizing them. Dated entries showed the genesis of strategies months before Vincent conceived them on executive retreats. At 11:30, I took a deep breath and walked into Caroline Reeves' office. Her assistant was at lunch, which I had anticipated. "Maya." Caroline looked surprised. She rarely interacted with anyone below senior management. "Did Vincent send you with something?" "No, Ms. Reeves. I came on my own initiative. I have something important to discuss regarding the Westlake portfolio and several other major client strategies." She raised an eyebrow but gestured to a chair. "I have 15 minutes before my next call." "That should be sufficient to begin the conversation," I said, placing my evidence folder on her desk. 15 minutes extended to 45 as I methodically walked her through document after document, email after email. I explained how the Westlake strategy had developed, pointing to my original notes dated months before the Aspen retreat Vincent had claimed as his moment of inspiration. "Why are you showing me this now?" Caroline asked, her face unreadable. "Because Sterling Financial Partners deserves to know who is actually generating the strategies that have made this firm millions," I said calmly. "And because I deserve recognition for my work." Caroline was silent for a long moment. "You understand these are serious allegations against one of our senior partners." "I do. And I am prepared to substantiate every claim with evidence that would stand up to any internal investigation or, if necessary, external review." It was a calculated risk. I was either about to be fired or finally heard. "Leave these with me," Caroline said finally, gesturing to the documents. "Do not speak to anyone about this conversation. I will be in touch." I returned to my desk, heart pounding. There was no turning back now. The next 2 days were excruciating. Vincent returned from his celebration and continued as if nothing had changed, assigning me 3 new client portfolios with impossible deadlines. I complied without comment, maintaining my normal routine while waiting for the axe to fall. On the 3rd morning, an email arrived from Caroline's assistant. "Meeting requested with Ms. Reeves for 30 p.m. today. Conference room A." Vincent was unusually nervous that day. He hovered around my desk, checking on progress more frequently than normal. Had he been warned? Was this meeting about my termination, rather than my vindication? At 4:25, I gathered my tablet and a small notebook and walked calmly to conference room A. To my surprise, the entire board was present, along with the head of HR and the firm's general counsel. Vincent sat alone on one side of the table, his face ashen. Caroline gestured for me to take a seat across from him. "Thank you for joining us, Maya," she began formally. "We have spent the past several days reviewing the documentation you provided, along with additional internal communications and records." Vincent looked at me, realization and betrayal dawning on his face. I met his gaze steadily. "Vincent has had an opportunity to respond to the evidence," Caroline continued. "After thorough consideration, the board has unanimously concluded that there has been a systematic pattern of appropriation of your work without proper attribution or compensation." Vincent started to speak, but the general counsel raised a hand, silencing him. "This is not merely an ethical issue," Caroline said. "It represents a material misrepresentation to the board, to our clients, and potentially to regulatory bodies about who is creating the strategies that our firm has been marketing and implementing." I sat perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe. Vincent will be leaving Sterling Financial Partners, effective immediately. Vincent's face contorted with rage. "You cannot do this. I built this division. Those were my clients." "Actually," I said quietly, speaking for the first time, "they were our clients. And the strategies were mine." Caroline turned to me. "Maya, the board would like to offer you Vincent's position as head of investment strategy, with appropriate adjustment to your compensation and benefits. You have demonstrated not only exceptional financial acumen, but also integrity under difficult circumstances." The vindication was sweeter than I had imagined, but as I looked at Vincent, now being escorted from the room by security who had materialized at the door, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Satisfaction, yes. Justice, certainly. But also a strange emptiness that success achieved through someone else's downfall brings. "I would be honored to accept," I told Caroline. Later that evening, as I was packing up my things to move to my new office on the executive floor, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You'll regret this. Nobody stabs me in the back and gets away with it. I made you, and I can break you just as easily. Vincent." I should have expected as much, but I was not afraid. I took a screenshot of the message and forwarded it to both Caroline and the general counsel with a simple note. "FYI, first and only communication I plan to have with Vincent post-termination." Caroline's response was immediate. "Documented. Legal will handle. Don't engage. And Maya, go home and celebrate. You've earned it." I smiled as I looked around my small, soon-to-be former workspace. I had entered this morning as someone's shadow. I would return tomorrow as someone casting a shadow of my own. The transition was not smooth. Several of Vincent's loyal clients threatened to leave when they heard he was gone. I had anticipated this and prepared detailed presentations, showing the performance of their portfolios, the underlying strategies, and most importantly, proof that I had been the architect of their success all along. One by one I met with them. One by one they stayed. Some grudgingly at first, but as the months passed and their investments continued to thrive under my explicit guidance, the grudging acceptance turned to respect. What I had not anticipated was the campaign Vincent would wage against me from the outside. It began with whispers in the industry, rumors that I had seduced my way into the position, that I had fabricated evidence against Vincent, that I was out of my depth and Sterling's clients would soon pay the price for the board's mistake. Then came the more direct attacks. Vincent had landed at a competing firm and was actively poaching not just clients but team members, spreading his poisonous narrative as he did. "He's saying you're a fraud," my assistant informed me one afternoon, after receiving a call from her counterpart at Vincent's new firm. "He's telling everyone who will listen that you stole his work, not the other way around." I could have been angry. Instead, I was calculating. Vincent was playing a dangerous game, one with legal implications given the documentation Sterling now had on file. "Thank you for letting me know," I told her calmly. "Please document that conversation in an email to me and copy legal." That evening, I stayed late at the office, mapping out a strategy of a different kind. If Vincent wanted war, I would give him something unexpected instead. The next morning, I requested a meeting with Caroline. "I need to address the Vincent situation," I told her. "He's becoming increasingly aggressive in his attempts to damage both my reputation and the firm's." Caroline nodded grimly. "Legal is preparing cease and desist letters. But you know how these things go. The rumors often do more damage than can be repaired through legal channels." "I have a different approach in mind," I said. "One that neutralizes Vincent while simultaneously strengthening our position in the market." I outlined my plan. Instead of fighting Vincent's narrative directly, we would render it irrelevant through overwhelming positive evidence to the contrary. I proposed a series of white papers and industry presentations that would establish my expertise beyond question, featuring the innovative thinking that had been hidden behind Vincent's name for years. Additionally, I continued, I want to launch a new signature fund that incorporates my latest strategy, one Vincent has never seen. If we can secure the Westlake family as anchor investors, others will follow. Caroline studied me with interest. "You're not just looking to defend against Vincent's attacks. You're using this as an opportunity to elevate yourself and Sterling to a new level in the industry." "Precisely," I confirmed. "The best revenge is not just success. It's success that your adversary cannot possibly claim credit for." Over the next 6 months, I worked harder than I ever had. But this time, with my name prominently featured on everything I produced. The white papers were published to industry acclaim. My presentations at financial conferences were standing room only. The new fund, which I named Phoenix, a symbolism not lost on industry insiders, attracted twice our target investment in the first month. Meanwhile, Vincent's attacks grew increasingly desperate and thin. Without my work to claim as his own, his performance at his new firm was mediocre at best. Clients began to notice the difference between the strategies he had presented while at Sterling and what he could actually produce on his own. The turning point came during the annual Industry Innovation Awards. Both Sterling and Vincent's new firm had submitted entries in the category of Alternative Investment Strategy of the Year. Sterling with my Phoenix Fund, and Vincent's firm with his much-hyped but underperforming Titan Fund. I sat with the Sterling team as the nominees were announced. Vincent was across the room, surrounded by his new colleagues, looking confident despite recent setbacks. Our eyes met briefly. He smirked. I remained impassive. "And the winner for Alternative Investment Strategy of the Year is Sterling Financial Partners Phoenix Fund, developed by Maya Chun." The room erupted in applause. I made my way to the stage, acutely aware of Vincent's stunned expression. This was an award he had won twice in previous years, with my uncredited work. "Thank you." I began my acceptance speech. Innovation in finance is never the work of a single person, and I'm deeply grateful to my incredible team at Sterling, who helped bring the Phoenix strategy from concept to successful implementation. I paused, scanning the room. Vincent was now staring at the table, his colleagues leaning away from him, as if his failure might be contagious. I would also like to acknowledge that success often comes after periods of constraint and challenge. The Phoenix Fund is aptly named because it was born from a professional rebirth of sorts, a reminder that our greatest innovations often emerge when we are finally free to spread our wings. The industry insiders in the room understood exactly what I was referring to. The story of Vincent's departure and my ascension had become common knowledge. As I concluded my speech and returned to the Sterling table, my phone buzzed in my evening bag. I checked it discreetly. It was from Caroline. The Westlake family just messaged. They're doubling their investment in Phoenix after watching your speech. Who needs litigation when you have living proof? I smiled but did not reply immediately. Across the room, Vincent was making an early exit, practically fleeing from the awards ceremony. His hasty departure did not go unnoticed. After the event, as our team celebrated at an exclusive rooftop bar, I stepped away for a moment of quiet reflection on the terrace. The city lights sparkled below, a visual manifestation of how far I had come from my small, windowless office. Quite a transformation, came a voice behind me. I turned to find Julian Westlake, the son of Sterling's oldest client family, and now the head of their investment committee. Thank you, I said. It's been an eventful year. That's putting it mildly. Julian laughed. You know, I never trusted Vincent. There was always something performative about his brilliance. My father could not understand why I insisted on sitting in on every strategy meeting. I raised an eyebrow. And now I understand what I was sensing. It was the disconnect between the man presenting the ideas and the actual intelligence behind them. He raised his glass. To authenticity, it's rarer than genius in our industry. We clinked glasses. To authenticity, I echoed. Julian studied me for a moment. You know, Vincent came to us immediately after leaving Sterling. Pitched us hard on moving our family's investments to his new firm. Said you were taking credit for his work, not the other way around. My stomach tightened despite my outward calm. The Westlakes were Sterling's oldest and most prestigious clients. I was not aware of that. My father was briefly persuaded. Vincent can be convincing when cornered. Julian smiled. But then we had our analysts compare the Westlake portfolio strategies from the past 5 years with what Vincent was currently proposing at his new firm. The difference was illuminating. I felt a weight lift that I had not even realized I was carrying. And what did you conclude? That Vincent was to financial strategy what karaoke singers are to original music. Technically hitting the notes, but lacking the creative spark that makes it brilliant. Julian laughed. Once we saw that, we not only stayed with Sterling but, as you know, became the first investors in Phoenix. I smiled. I'm grateful for your family's confidence. It's not confidence, it's math, Julian replied pragmatically. The returns speak for themselves. As we rejoined the celebration, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. I was no longer the shadow I had been for 8 years. I was substantial now, visible, credited. The revenge I had sought had transformed into something far more valuable than the mere downfall of Vincent. It had become my liberation, my reinvention. 3 months after the award ceremony, news broke that Vincent had been asked to leave his new firm. Their quarterly reports had shown significant underperformance in his division, and several major clients had withdrawn their funds. Without my work to claim as his own, Vincent's true capabilities had been exposed. I received the news during a leadership retreat, one that I was not only invited to but was helping to lead. Caroline forwarded me the industry article with just a "eyes" as comment. I did not respond. There was no need. Vincent was no longer my concern, no longer a threat. He had become irrelevant in the narrative of my career and Sterling's success. That evening, as the retreat participants enjoyed dinner, I stepped away to call my mother, a weekly ritual I maintained despite my increasingly demanding schedule. I saw the news about your former boss, she said after we had caught up on family matters. How do you feel about it? I considered the question carefully. Vindicated, but not in the way I expected. It's less about him failing, and more about finally being free to succeed on my own terms. That's my girl, she said proudly. The best revenge is not revenge at all, I finished. It's becoming so focused on your own excellence that those who wrong you fade into the background of your story. After ending the call, I rejoined the retreat, where my team was brainstorming our next major initiative. As I entered the room, conversations paused, and heads turned toward me, not with fear or obedience as they had with Vincent, but with genuine respect and anticipation. What do you think, Maya? Asked a junior analyst, pointing to the strategy framework they had sketched on the whiteboard. I think I said, taking the marker and adding a critical connection they had missed. That this is exactly why we work as a team. Every voice, every perspective matters in creating something truly innovative. The analyst beamed. In that moment, I realized I had not just claimed my rightful place. I had transformed it. Where Vincent had built a kingdom on stolen glory, I was building a community on shared success. His power had required my silence. Mine was amplified by elevating others. 1 year to the day after I had walked into Caroline's office with my folder of evidence, I received an email notification. Vincent's professional profile had been updated. He was now working at a small regional firm, a significant step down from his previous positions. I closed the notification without opening it. His story was no longer intertwined with mine. I had clients to meet, a team to mentor, strategies to develop. I had a business card that read Maya Chun, Managing Director, Head of Investment Strategy, on heavy card stock. I had a corner office with windows that faced the rising sun. I had everything Vincent had tried to deny me, and I had earned it all myself. The quiet one had found her voice, and the financial world was listening.